Welcome to today's session, the midweek symposium. And again, I'd like to apologize that we are not starting exactly at the time that we were meant to, but then I'm sure that we'll be able to quickly run through what we have to do today. So today we're considering the topic, navigating employee engagement in austere times. The first thing we would then need to do would be to understand what exactly we mean by austere times. So by way of introduction, we would be looking at the definition of key concepts. The first one being employee engagement itself, while the second then would be what we mean by austere times. After that, we'll proceed to look at a few tips that we can share that can help us in austere times to be able to manage employee engagement. And then from there, we proceed to conclusion. So it's a very brief presentation. I'll try to also not make it unnecessarily elaborate with too many explanations. So the first thing to say is that these times, as of 2 weeks ago or so, when we decided on this topic, we did not even know that we would wake up to a different news yesterday morning, telling us about yet another increase, a further increase in the cost of PMS. That is the pump price of PMS from, we were at 185 thereabouts, then proceeded to 488, 492, 495, 500, depending on where you're buying. And from what I hear, we are now at over 600 as we speak. And I don't know if we can have any better explanation of what we mean by austere times, looking at what we have on our hands. And so everybody, every business, HR professionals, I'm not sure what's happening in your space, but all around me, not just in my office, but everywhere else, you hear this groaning. Everybody seems to want HR to do something. Everybody seems to want the organization to do something as quickly as possible and as huge as possible to be able to absorb all of the concerns that people have around what exactly the country has thrown at us in terms of what the economy looks like right now. That is speaking to those of us in Nigeria. So if we want to go through the interpretations or explanations of the key concepts that we have, we'll be looking at what we mean by employee engagement. So this is a term that almost every HR person has come across. I'm sure that where you work, it's probably part of what you handle, employee engagement. But what exactly is employee engagement? We'll be looking at it from two angles. The first angle is defining employee engagement as a noun. As a noun, employee engagement is an HR concept that describes the level of enthusiasm and dedication a worker feels toward their job. That is to say that, when a worker or an employee, I believe that's more appropriate, has some level of affinity, has some level of enthusiasm, has some level of dedication, to the work that they do, then you can say that such an employee is engaged. You can also measure it by how happy people are, coming to work. There are people who wake up every morning and the last thing they want to do is, come to the office. Sometimes when you look at WhatsApp statuses or some of these other social media posts that people put up, you will see people who, Monday morning, you see people saying, oh God, it's another Monday, I don't want to go to work. Okay, can I just get paid without going to work and all that? So an engaged employee is one who looks forward to what they do at the company, who looks forward to going to work. They care about their work and about the performance of the company, and they feel that their efforts make a difference. That's yet another level. So employees have this understanding that whatever it is that they do contributes to the bottom line of the business, whatever that bottom line is defined as. When they believe that, okay, whatever little contribution I make at my desk or in my little corner, there is something that it adds to the big picture. then those employees, are engaged. An employee engagement, an engaged employee is in it for more than a paycheck and may consider their well-being linked to their performance and thus instrumental to their company's success. So you find engaged employees, going above and beyond for the business or for the company, organization, or establishment. That, in a nutshell, is what we mean when we talk about employee engagement. So it is that feeling, that affinity, that consciousness that what you do, in your little space counts. And so you see people who are able to stretch themselves, do any and everything possible to make sure that they deliver to the best of their ability in the job that they do in the organization. But then beyond that, we also now look at employee engagement as a verb. And that is where it concerns us the most in this evening's discussion. Where it concerns us the most is employee engagement as a verb. So employee engagement as a verb would then refer to all the necessary steps that we have to take in order to ensure that our employees achieve a positive emotional connection with the organization. And above all, that the work they are assigned to do, that they achieve some level of emotional connection with that work. So in our first definition, we have defined it as a noun. And we said that it means, some concept. This is how people feel and all that. But employee engagement also is a verb. It's actually something that in elementary English, we were taught that a verb is an action word. An action word being something something you can do, something you can maybe move around, is an action word. Something that requires you to make some kind of movement. That is what a verb actually is. So if we speak of an employee engagement as a verb, we're no longer just defining a concept. We are now talking about actual actions. We are now talking about actual steps that we can take to make sure that employees are engaged. I hope that's clear enough. And then I said that there are 3 parts to any feasible employee engagement strategy. So in your company, your organization, wherever it is that you work, in defining your employee engagement strategy, you need to take into cognizance 3 key areas. The first is the physical area. In the physical area, employees exert a high amount of energy to do the work. The level of complexity of work corresponds to the employee's specialized skill sets. So you have to look out for that in engaging employees. So that means that all the way from the time you begin to engage people for employment itself, from that very point, you are looking to make sure that you give them a good experience. You are looking to make sure that, in the course of my recruitment job, in the course of my career, I've come across some candidates that, when you meet them at interviews, you want them to start working for you that evening because you could see them that they have this high level of passion, this high level of, energy that they want to bring to the workspace. So from the very get-go, from the time you first make contact with anybody, you are looking to ensure that you give the person a good experience. There's also the emotional angle. The emotional angle is when employees understand that the significance of the job they do, is very, very key, that the job they do is very important, and then they put their heart into the job. So whatever it is that you're doing, you have to make sure that in engaging your employees, you create that atmosphere that makes them see it without any doubt, without any confusion, that, okay, this job I am doing, it adds to something. No matter how little it is, it adds to something. If you can connect with them at that emotional level, then that is one very important aspect that you need to take up or look into when you are designing your employee engagement strategy. Finally, is a cognitive aspect. The cognitive aspect is when employees become engrossed with their work and start to get into the flow. So that means that, you would have heard about employees who talk the work, who walk the walk. Everything they do is just about the work. They are totally engrossed. Now, sometimes you may feel that maybe there's a thin line between that and maybe being sold out or being should I say, engrossed in your work to the extent that you neglect your own self. Of course, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying, okay. I'm saying that, when you put the work in the minds of your employees, intentionally put the work in the minds of your employees to the extent that, for every line of thoughts they are thinking of how that plays out for them, with respect to the work that they do in your organization. So those are the two areas I'd like us to look at when we speak of employee engagement. Please don't forget, first, we spoke about it as a noun, which is a concept. Secondly, we are speaking about it now as a verb, which is something that we actually do, steps that we can actually take to make sure that our employees are engaged. And then from there, so what we have here on this slide is just what happens when employees are, engaged. They are self-motivated, they have a clear understanding of their roles, they recognize the significance of their contribution, they focus on future training and development, and then they feel that they belong to the community, that is the organization in which they work. So if we understand the concept of employee engagement well as a noun, and apply the steps and principles required in employee engagement as a verb, we are very likely to achieve this kind of result where we have employees who are engaged. For the purpose of the conversation we are having today, we'll be looking at employee engagement, like I said, as a verb. And today we'll probably be focusing more around communication, the things that we say to our employees, especially in austere times. But then before we do that, what are austere times? So this refers to any low time in your company or in your establishment. Any time that there is a challenge, regardless of what kind of challenge there is, then we can say that we are talking about austere times, or we are defining austere times. And in trying to break that down, I have tried to break it down into two broad areas, the economic and the political, and I'll explain what I mean. By economic, we are speaking about those things that affect the company's revenue or bottom line. So every company is in business. We were taught that from elementary economics. Everybody who is in business is there for what they can take home at the end of the day. So now anything that threatens that particular objective, anything that affects the income or the revenue or the ability to make profits of a company is an economic. Okay, Temitope, you're raising your hand. You'd like to say something?
Could you please activate the slide mode on your slide?
Say that again.
Yeah, like can you activate the slide mode on your slide?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so I said that there are two broad areas that we'll be looking at when we speak of austere times. And I said that those broad areas are economic and political. And I said that for the economic area, we are talking about those things that threaten the ability of the organization or the company to make profits or to generate revenue or to have something that they take home at the end of whatever period, monthly, quarterly, or annually, or whatever period that they use for the measurement of their income and all. So, and then there's the political. The political speaks to things that may then affect the general environment, even though it may not affect the economy itself, even though it may not affect the ability of the company to generate revenue or make income, it would still be an issue, because then before we know what is happening, that area dovetails into the other area and then creates a chaos. Okay, so then under the economic area or economic austere times, we look at it from two areas. First is what I termed the microeconomic. The microeconomic austere times are those things that are localized to your organization and affecting revenue. And the instances I have here are the exit of a key sales staff. So for some of us who are in businesses where sales is what we do, we sell products from which we make money or intend to make money. When we have a key sales staff leaving the business or leaving the organization, it's always a threat. It's always a problem for us. But now that problem affects only that organization. So you sell, let me say you sell milk, and there are 10 other companies who sell milk. And then one of your sales staff is leaving. It affects only your company. It affects your company's ability to generate revenue, affects your company's ability to make profits or to get income. But it does not affect other companies that are also into the sale of milk. So because of that, we say it is microeconomic. That means it is restricted to your organization alone. Now, that's one definition of what we mean by Am I still audible?
Yeah, we lost you for a second.
Sorry, I was using my phone and the call was coming through. Sorry about that. Okay, so we also have the macroeconomic. The macroeconomic is when this happens on a wider scale. Remember, we said that the micro means it is localized to your organization. So the exit of your sales staff does not affect the B company beside you. You are company A. Company B does not lose their sales staff. As a matter of fact, they probably profit from the exit of your sales staff, your key sales staff. Still using our example of a company that sells milk, right? But on a macroeconomic level, we have it happening on a wider scale. Let's say there's a nationwide or industry-wide concern. Let us say that, where do we derive milk from? From animals, right? Okay, let's say there is some particular disease that affects cows or whichever animal from where we derive dairy products that will make us generate raw materials that we need to make milk. Now that is happening at a macroeconomic level. It does not matter whether you are company A or you are company B. Once that issue is maybe global or nationwide or happening on a wider scale, it transcends the borders of your own company. Then we say that that is macroeconomic of your business. It can also be about the people. For example, the recent experience we have in Nigeria that we spoke about at the time that we were beginning this session, where we spoke about the increase in fuel price and everything. Now, that is a macroeconomic concern. There's nothing your company can or could have done about it. There's nothing, if you abuse the president from now to tomorrow, or you develop or draw up all the strategies in this world, it still will not help the matter because it is beyond what your company alone as an individual company can handle. Now, such things are happening at a macroeconomic level. So then we come to the political perspective. We have the micro-political perspective. The micro-political perspective speaks to political changes in the organization and other issues that affect the business image internally. So, for example, I don't know if we have anybody who works in such organization here, where you have some kind of tussle, at the top. Maybe there is some fight happening at the board level. Maybe the MD or CEO and an executive director or owners of the company, or something is happening, and they are not able to settle their differences. And because of the rift that is created between both of them, the business itself then is affected. There's news, in town about how, so every other thing that does not exactly touch the bottom line in the first instance, we classify under political. So if there is strange news, about something happening within the company, and if we begin to roll our minds back, I'm sure we can recall a few stories that have been told about some companies, maybe some kind of inordinate affair going on between somebody, one manager and one staff, or some kind of power tussle or anything like that. Now, that is also an example of a political austere time. And finally, we have the macro-political. Macro-political, just pretty much like what we described under the macroeconomic, are things that are beyond the shores or the walls of the organization that you work for or that you run. So what that means is that the examples I have here, for example, are pronouncements of a political nature, threatening business continuity. Example, withdrawal of operating license. So I've worked in banking almost all my life. And so we know what it is when you hear information like, oh, the central bank is about to withdraw the operating license of some banks. More often than not, almost at the end of every year, you will hear, oh, a particular report, Fitch report or something came out stating that 5 banks in Nigeria are not healthy, or things of that nature. So everybody is wondering, okay, so is it us or is it this bank? Is it where I have my money or is it not where I have my money or something like that? At certain times, the central bank actually comes out and implements what they have threatened by actually withdrawing the license of, a particular bank and all that. That is for banking. Now, outside banking also, you have all sorts of regulators coming into different spaces. People who are in broadcasting, for example, you would hear about Nigerian Broadcasting Commission sanctioning a particular TV station or radio station for airing a particular advert or doing something that they consider improper, and all that. Now, for some of those things, it is not a fight happening at the board level. It is not about a manager trying to take undue advantage of a subordinate. It is not about management staff fighting. It is not about any other form of reputational issue that stems from within the organization itself. This is macro. It is outside what the organization can handle or could have handled. And there may be little or nothing that the organization may do about it. Now, so those are the two perspectives of austere times. I've spoken about the economic perspective, and then now we just finished talking about the political perspective. And within each of these perspectives, we have the micro issues. These are things happening within the company that are affecting the company either economically or politically, where, of course, you understand that the word political is used in a sense, not in terms of APC and PDP, for example, right? And then you also now have the macro issues. These are issues that transcend the borders or the walls of the organization itself. Okay, so having said that, we will then proceed to the reason why we are here. How do we navigate employee engagement in these times? So you wake up and you realize that the organization that you represent or work for, there are concerns, economic concerns, either they are micro or macro. There are political concerns, either they are micro or macro. At those times, what are you expected to do? What can you do to ensure that, remember when we were defining employee engagement, we had said that we are talking about employees who are, for want of a better word, let me say, sold out to the company. They have given their all. They are able to, stretch themselves even beyond their limits to be able to go, all the way for the company. When you have people like that, how do you ensure that you still maintain that level of engagement with your staff, even when you are faced with austere times? And like I said, it does not matter what nature of austere times you are facing, whether of an economic nature or of a political nature. So I have a few tips that I would like to share with us. This is a knowledge share session, so I believe that we're all just sharing ideas. All right, so the first thing I have noted that we need to do is to acknowledge the situation. And you'll see that I put in brackets, no hanky-panky. So by the time, or when I say no hanky, not, by the time some of these issues are coming to the fore, chances are that your employees have already heard about it. They probably already know, and they are just waiting for management, whom you represent as HR professionals, or even management itself as an entity, to speak to the matter. So acknowledge that these issues exist. That's the first thing you need to do. You can't have a situation where Not too long ago, we had a company, I'm trying to avoid calling names. I think they sell one of these foods that we mix as grain or something. And there was news in the air that a particular product coming from that company contains rubber or plastic or something. And so people have been mixing it. I think it's some kind of maybe poundo yam or something. You know, there's news in the air that, oh, you think stop eating it. What I'm talking about happened maybe like a month ago or something, and NAFDAC eventually had to come out to make an announcement. Oh no, we have tested this product. It is not like that, and all of that and all of that. Sometimes we've heard things about noodles where they say, oh, a particular brand of noodles, it contains, different things. And because it contains different chemicals and all that is not safe, don't feed your children with that and all of that. So all of these things, the way it hits the airwaves is the same way because your staff, your employees are all part of the global community. They're all part of, if you live in the society, they are all there. They listen to the same news that you listen to. They read the same newspapers that you read. So there's no need coming out to play hanky-panky. Let it be known and let it be clear that, okay, this is the situation that we have. When you do that, one of the first things you would have done is to, first of all, gain their trust. They know that, okay, we have a management or an HR that's not trying to, escape issues or navigate themselves or their way out of issues. So acknowledge it. That's the first thing to do. The second thing to do is to then be diplomatic in your approach. You should only disclose audience-specific information. What do I mean by that? Information you give to board of directors is different from information you give to management staff. That's different from information you give to supervisors.